Tonight, a critical mission to strengthen trade and security partnerships. CTV is in South Korea for an inside look at a potential $100 billion defense deal. Plus, we get a view from within a Canadian mining project that could help support defense and EV battery sectors.
Our metal detectors was beeping throughout a fairly large area.
Standing united against immigration enforcement, where protesters took to the streets north of the border.
If we don't pay attention to what's going on in the south, we may have it in our backyard as well.
And a mission to the moon is a family affair.
We're so happy that Jimmy's going to finally live out his dream, but we're also very nervous.
The parents of Canada's first moon-bound astronaut share their own mission of supporting their son's childhood dream.
I think it would be a proud moment for the whole country.
CTV National News with Heather Butts.
Good evening. The competition to build and maintain Canada's next fleet of submarines is heating up. The Federal Defense Procurement Secretary is in South Korea, along with more than 24 CEOs from the defense sector. They're on a mission to expand trade and military partnerships. Our senior correspondent, Judy Trin, is there with a preview of what's at stake.
Heather, Canada's Secretary of State for Defense Procurement is visiting South Korea this week to explore trade opportunities. Secretary Stephen Fair is meeting with Korean defense officials over the next 2 days. He's joined by about 24 CEOs and executives from Canada's security, aviation, and shipbuilding sectors. Last fall, Canada and South Korea signed a defense cooperation agreement that laid the groundwork for stronger ties between ministers and top soldiers. The biggest military contract on the horizon right now is the bid to replace Canada's fleet of aging submarines. The Royal Canadian Navy wants to buy 12 new vessels, and the bids are due at the end of the month. As part of his trip, Secretary Fair will visit Hanwha's shipyard in Koje. Hanwha has partnered with more than 20 Canadian companies to use their technology and materials in the production of the KS-3 submarines they want to sell to Canada.
The submarine is in the water. It's got an operational performance record. It can stay under for greater than 3 weeks. It can operate in and near Arctic, and it can be delivered in 2032 with the first submarine here.
The contract to build and maintain submarines could be worth around $100 billion over 3 to 4 decades. Whether it goes to South Korea or German competitor TKMS, the acquisition will be a big part of Canada's pledge to spend 5% of GDP on defense by 2035. Heather.
Judy Trin in Koje, South Korea tonight. As Canada looks to enhance its trading capabilities, expanding the port of Churchill will be critical. An Arctic gateway for global trade, Manitoba's premier is promoting it as an energy powerhouse. He's now heading to the north this week. CTV's Alison Bamford with more on what the visit means.
The polar bear capital of the world could also one day become a sea trade superpower.
Big energy play, defense, environmental protection. Churchill has it all in terms of nation building.
Ahead of the First Ministers meeting last Thursday, Manitoba Premier Kinew spoke highly of plans to unlock potential at the Port of Churchill, announcing he will fly to the remote northern community this week to hear from locals, who he says should be at the center of the conversation.
I think the Premier being there is a really important step.
The port currently operates just 4 months of the year, shipping critical minerals to European markets and other supplies to the north. Ottawa has earmarked the port as a transformative project, seeing potential as a reliable part of a supply chain that could support military presence in the north and a gateway for year-round trade through the Atlantic.
Because of the geography of where Churchill is, it saves sailing time upwards to, a week of sailing time versus, say, going through Vancouver.
Saving time would save money, another factor making Churchill attractive. One expert says the expansion is quite feasible, but he questions what might happen to the town's other major industry.
It's one thing to be a big industrial port, and it's another thing to be a tourist town. And I'm not sure how you blend the tourist town with a big industrial port.
Manitoba's premier is scheduled to take part in a tourism roundtable and a town hall with community members in Churchill on Tuesday. He's also meeting with Indigenous leaders and expected to be on hand for a funding announcement related to marine conservation. Allison Bamford, CTV News, Winnipeg.
The Arctic is at the forefront of the Governor General's agenda tomorrow as she sets off on a multinational tour. Mary Simon will depart for Norway on Monday to take part in the Arctic Frontiers Conference. She will also meet with Norway's king. The trip will allow Simon to highlight Canada's commitment to Arctic collaboration and the role of Indigenous communities in the region's future. The trip will also take her to Denmark and Greenland. There, Simon will attend the opening of the first Canadian consulate in Greenland's capital. Uniting our nation is something many, including politicians, are trying to do. But there is a quiet threat to Canadian unity in Alberta, where separatists are seeking independence. The group confirms it met with members of the Trump administration, but won't say who. CTV's Kamal Kermali has more.
This is a sign of a movement gaining momentum. Week after week, lineup after lineup to sign up for an independent Alberta.
Alberta could be more prosperous and free on our own.
Now, in an interview with CTV's Question Period, a key member of the province's leading separatist group confirming it's held meetings with U.S. officials.
We're meeting at a very high level. People in our meetings are going, direct.
Stephen Miller?
I'm not going to say. I mean,
Why not?
We're not, because we're not. We have an agreement with the people that we're meeting with that we're not disclosing the identities of the people that we're meeting with.
Just that it didn't include U.S. President Donald Trump. The group now looking to create a feasibility study on how an independent Alberta would be able to fund itself.
And put together a complete dossier so that we can just hand it over to whoever the government of Alberta is in power and say, hey, if Ottawa is giving you a hard time, here's an easy way out.
Alberta's premier has refused calls to denounce the movement, and on CTV's Question Period saying she won't do anything to stop her own caucus from signing on.
I don't police the responses of my MLAs. They can sign whatever petition that they want.
Not knowing if any have actually signed the petition, separatists in Alberta need 178,000 signatures by May for their petition to trigger a referendum on the province's independence. But Premier Danielle Smith herself keen on sticking with Canada.
My approach and the approach of our caucus as a united caucus has been to support a sovereign Alberta within United Canada.
But questions now on how long she can keep the juggling act going.
Because you can't, on the one hand, agitate to have the type of radical change that they're talking about, and on the other hand, say that you care about the Canadian economy and the future of the country.
And to add more fuel to the fire, a U.S. State Department official now confirming they did meet with the Alberta separatist group, but that no commitments were made. Heather.
Thanks, Kamal. CTV's Kamal Kermali in Toronto. The Prime Minister has shared a message of support and solidarity on what is the beginning of Black History Month. Mark Carney's statement reads in part, today marks the beginning of the 30th Black History Month in Canada under the theme honoring Black brilliance across generations, from nation builders to tomorrow's visionaries. He goes on to say, we affirm our responsibility to back words with action, deliver opportunity, and build a country where racism has no place. Members of the Iranian community gathering across the country, including at the Saskatchewan legislature, to stand in solidarity with anti-government protesters in Iran and to call on Ottawa to do more.
They expect us to be their voice. So we are here to showing that there is a solidarity with them, and we expect Canada to be our voice.
The demonstrators say they want to raise awareness about the protests and about the regime's violent crackdown that has claimed thousands of lives.
Regime change now! Regime change now!
And thousands joined a march through downtown Toronto in support of the Iranian people and to call for regime change in Tehran. The rallies come as Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei warned the U.S. that any American military intervention in Iran would spark a larger conflict in the Middle East. The U.S. has recently moved several warships to the Middle East. Demonstrators also taking to the streets in Montreal, this time to denounce the controversial actions of immigration and customs enforcement agents in the U.S. The anti-ICE protest taking shape outside the city's U.S. consulate. CTV's Sweeta Rassi was there and finds out what they're calling on Canadians to do.
Dozens gathered outside the U.S. consulates in downtown Montreal, and their message was clear. Democracy is what we need.
Demonstrators are protesting the actions of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, better known as ICE, and what they're calling an escalating violent crackdown on civil rights south of the border. In recent weeks, ICE agents fatally shot 2 American citizens during protests in Minneapolis, sparking outrage and international concern.
Our goal is to stand in solidarity with Minnesotans and Americans all across the U.S.
For Michael Lipset, who's originally from Minneapolis, seeing what's happening is upsetting.
It should always be the case that we show up in such force and opposition to stay violence against humans.
Also joining the rally, Bob Titler, who holds a dual citizenship.
And if we don't pay attention to what's going on in the South, we may have it in our backyard as well. So it is a matter of concern.
Under the Trump administration, ICE has been given broader authority to carry out immigration enforcement operations. For those here, they say what's happening in the U.S. is extremely troubling. Jacob Wisoki is the president of Democrats at McGill University. He says some Canadian companies are profiting from contracts linked to ICE, and he wants them to cut ties.
We're also here to call out and end Canadian complicity in these abuses.
Demonstrators say they will continue to speak out and mobilize until they see real change. Sweeta Rassi, CTV News.
A young boy who became a symbol of the U.S. crackdown is back home in Minnesota. 5-year-old Liam and his father were detained by immigration officers and shipped off to Texas almost 2 weeks ago. They were released yesterday following a judge's order. The Ecuadorian boy and his father entered the United States legally as asylum applicants. The weather has been playing havoc across the country for weeks with heavy snowfalls in many parts. But farmers, especially in Atlantic Canada, are welcoming the winter conditions. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth explains why they're looking at big snow accumulations as a benefit, not a hindrance.
As this harsh winter continues, making it a challenge for many to get around or just be outside, meteorologist Jim Abraham sees an upside for farmers.
The good news is we're getting a snowpack.
Farmer Alan Melvin says heavy snowfall can be restorative, giving crops a better chance at growing later this year. That's particularly helpful following last summer's record-setting drought.
Some soil protection, some crop protection for things like winter wheat that are in the ground, and then that slow snow melt.
When the weather warms, the dry soil could be replenished in time for Nova Scotia's growing season.
The snowpack is actually more important to farmers and wells and the water resources than heavy rain.
In the winter, when the ground is hard, rain runs into the ocean and rivers, but stored water in the snow melts and runs off slowly, directly into the soil.
And the groundwater amounts increase, and everybody's happy.
Including Jordan Yamey, who lost 30% of her bean crops in 2025 because of dry conditions.
If there's a slow snow melt, that hopefully will replenish the water table and help out some of those wells and some of those ponds.
It would be welcome news for nervous farmers still reeling from their losses and crop damages following a dangerously dry summer. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
Coming up, hitting pay dirt in Quebec.
Our metal detectors was beeping throughout a fairly large area.
What's being pulled from the ground that could play a big role in Canada's financial future. Plus, how a Canadian artist is capturing his love of ferries one brushstroke at a time. A Quebec mine is close to ramping up to commercial production of a critical mineral, graphite, used in sectors including EV batteries and the defense industry. But as CTV's Quebec Bureau Chief Geneviève Beauchemin learns, there are still a few roadblocks to overcome.
Saint-Michel-des-Saints is a small village on the edge of Quebec's vast forests. Its critical mineral deposits could put it on the map of Ottawa's New World Order, this by boosting Canada's self-reliance. Quebec mining company, coincidentally called Nouveau Monde or New World Graphite, hit pay dirt here more than a decade ago.
Our metal detectors was beeping throughout a fairly large area.
Graphite says the company has many uses, including in the defense and EV battery sectors.
So it's about 4.5% grade.
Founder and CEO Éric Desaulniers says that for now, Asia dominates the graphite market.
And the benefit to Canada and all G7 countries is to have a stable source of these critical minerals, but also at the right cost point.
Last year, the mine's financing hit roadblocks as several companies in the EV supply chain faltered.
This is the graphite.
But a test plant is up and running. And in November, Ottawa recognized the mine as a major project of national interest. The federal and provincial governments have invested. To go full steam ahead, the mine still needs to secure financing. Some have opposed the mine, fearing environmental fallout. But the Atikamekw First Nation of Manawan has since signed an impact benefits agreement.
Ouais, c'est ça.
And the mayor of Saint-Michel-des-Saints says he hopes the project will go ahead.
Ça va fleurir à Saint-Michel-des-Saints.
It will bring good-paying jobs to our region hit hard by U.S. tariffs on forestry, says Mario Venn. Families will return and our town will bloom.
This is where you're going to have all the machinery.
Kevin Ducharme is the mine's environmental director. He moved to the region years ago for its lakes, its forests.
It's normal to have concerns with a project like that. We're not in a mining region. People are not used to seeing mines.
He says the company is banking on the best mining practices, the best monitoring systems. There are still many steps to go, but the target date for commercial extraction here is the end of 2028. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Saint-Michel-des-Saints, Quebec.
Still ahead tonight. What inspired a BC man to paint love letters to the province's ferry fleet? A colorful sight taking over the famed canals of Venice. The annual Venice Carnival kicking off today with a spectacular parade down the city's Grand Canal. This year's edition has a bit of a twist, taking on an Olympics theme as part of the festivities, with the Winter Games set to start in nearby Milan and Cortina on Friday. For people in British Columbia, the extensive ferry system that connects Metro Vancouver to the series of islands off the coast is a rite of passage. But as CTV's Andrew Johnson shows us, for one man, it's much more. A metaphor for the beauty he sees all around us in the country he now feels fortunate to call home.
When Mayank Rahani and his wife first laid eyes on Canada's west coast, it was love at first sight.
When you look at those mountains, the waves, the sea, the whales, it gives me pleasure.
A visual feast the BC Ferries captain gratefully devours daily as he proudly pilots the ships that move thousands of people between Metro Vancouver and Vancouver Island.
As a captain, when I drive these boats, I feel full length of the vessel behind me.
For some in BC, the ferries are a way to get from point A to point B and nothing more. Complaining about cancellations and delays is a popular West Coast pastime. Rahani sees the service very differently.
It's not only a means of transportation, it's spreading of different kind of emotions and love.
So he's pouring out that emotion with paint, capturing the beauty he sees and the love he feels for the fleet.
I thought, why not paint every vessel and write a story on it? The history of the vessel, how they have served different communities and people, and how beautiful they look.
Fittingly, we needed to take a trip on the ferry from Vancouver to meet Rahani. This vessel is the Queen of Cowichan, which he has painted, but there are 30 more boats in the BC Ferries fleet, one of the world's largest, still on his to-do list. Several of Rahani's paintings are now displayed on ferries. Others are posted on his website and Captain's Easel social media account. He has also branched out to painting portraits of his colleagues and telling their stories. Rahani's story, that of an immigrant who traded New Delhi for Nanaimo, BC to make a home and start a family, is one of gratitude and putting life in perspective.
The biggest thing is how positively you see your life, how you help different people, how you help your community, and how you move forward. This is the main goal of my life.
A goal he is working on one brushstroke and one ferry sailing at a time. Andrew Johnson, CTV News, Nanaimo, BC.
Still ahead, the sun and the moon. Jeremy Hansen's parents share stories of his childhood dreams as they become reality. The clock is ticking on a mission that will truly be out of this world. Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen could blast off 1 week from tonight on a trip that will take him around the moon. CTV's John Benavalli-Rouse spoke with Hansen's parents, who live in Ontario, and say they're both excited and nervous as they too prepare for blast-off.
So this is Orion Jeremy's spacecraft, and he's going to be up in there for the launch. So pretty amazing.
Jeremy Hansen's parents are excited to finally see their son climb into the top of this rocket and blast off towards the moon.
I'm Jeremy Hansen.
What has long been his dream.
This is when we took him when he was in kindergarten.
Mom and Dad happily showing us pictures of Hansen as a space-obsessed kid here at age 6 during a visit to the Kennedy Space Center. On his first day of school, he carried a Star Wars lunchbox.
So this one is Happy Birthday from Space.
And check out the cake Mom made him when he turned 7, featuring Martians and a moon made of icing. And now their only child, who just turned 50, is set to boldly go deeper into space than anyone's gone before.
We're so happy that Jeremy's going to finally live out his dream. But we're also very nervous.
Hansen and 3 American astronauts hope to board NASA's Artemis rocket as early as next Sunday, then head off on a 10-day voyage, slingshotting around the moon. The rocket is set to undergo a critical fueling test this coming week, with Hansen aiming to be the first non-American ever to leave low Earth orbit.
I think it'll be a proud moment for the whole country.
Mom and Dad are heading to Florida ahead of the possible launch. They say it's something Hansen's wanted to do since he was 5 and came across an encyclopedia entry about Neil Armstrong on the moon.
Then he went out that night and looked up the moon, thinking I could go up there.
And he came out that day and said, I'm going to be an astronaut. We didn't think he would.
On the Ontario farm where they lived, Hansen converted the treehouse into a spaceship.
He had some old breakers, with the switches.
Like, make it look like it was like controls and everything. Very imaginative.
They say they know the mission has its risks, given the rocket and capsule, which are new, have never carried people before. Mom putting it bluntly.
He might not come back.
But she says she has a lot of confidence and trust in NASA.
Some people think it's just another launch. But when your child's on that launch, it's different.
Proud parents hoping to soon see their son turn a childhood fantasy into reality. John Benavalli-Rouse, CTV News, Ingersoll, Ontario.
And we will all be watching. That is our newscast for this Sunday evening. I'm Heather Butts. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Good night.